Welcome everybody, welcome to Totes Video. We are Totes playing Duskers, but more importantly, we're talking to the one and only Tim Keenan. Welcome to Totes Video. I hope you're having a good evening. I gotta say, from the get-go, Duskers scares the shit out of me. It is such a brilliant sci-fi, for people who don't know, it's a sci-fi survival horror game that is very similar to roguelikes, like Faster Than Light, but it has an element to it that is both isolating and terrifying, that is indescribable, but you'll obviously see how that goes in terms of gameplay. Tim is obviously one of the main developers for it. I know that you've built it. It wasn't just you. You obviously had I believe was it you and your partner worked on the game initially, and then
so Holly and I worked mostly on our previous game, A Virus Named Tom, then by the time Duskers rolled around, she was sick enough of me that she was like, "You do that one," because we had a daughter and she was working a full-time job, so she was like, "Go." She was like, "Go pay for an artist and go pay for." So Jeremy Phillips actually was someone who worked with me on A Virus Named Tom, and then he worked with me on Duskers, and then a whole cast and crew helped me with the rest of the game.
Well, I was gonna say the sound design is phenomenal. I think that's I don't want to say that's the best part of the game, because I think there's a lot of different bits and pieces. How did that how did you decide, first of all, on the sort of the I guess the tone, or like the look of the game in itself, like, because that I think is incredibly unique. Obviously people can see right now it's very much like a sort of command line, what the majority of the game looks like.
Yeah, that was it was a very iterative process. So I started off with this weird concept. Oh man, I guess it depends on how far back in the concept we want to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, it came out So it came out late 2016 or 2017?
Yeah, so if we go all the way back.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know if you remember how much of the story do you want?
No, it is totally up to you.
I'm a storyteller, so I'm gonna take my 5 minutes with this thing.
I've got 600 mils left of this in 2 hours before my girlfriend comes home, so you can go from that.
All right. So way back in the day, I don't know if you ever played Gears of War.
Yes.
But there was a part in that where you would hold a light. If you were playing co-op, you would hold a light, and the other person had to stay in the light, or these bats would eat you.
Yes, yeah. Right? That's the first game, right?
Yeah. And so I was fascinated by that because I played with my brother, and I loved the dependency there, right? Yeah. And I started thinking about that as gameplay, and then I thought about like the classic, like someone's breaking into, a bank or something like that, and you got the guy on the computer.
Yes,
right? That's helping him out, the hacker guy, right? That's like opening the doors and stuff like that.
Great concept.
And then I thought, wouldn't it be cool if you were doing that on a spaceship, right? Mm-hmm. One of you were scavengers, and one person went on, with the gun or whatever, and the other person was like looking at the schematics and opening doors and stuff like that, right? Yeah. And then I realized that I am an independent game developer. And then
you're not exactly
networking
code.
Networking code is hard.
Yeah.
3D cameras and movement and all that kind of stuff is hard.
Yes.
And expensive. And then I also realized that making a game that required 2 players, while it seemed like an awesome idea, was very pretty risky.
Yeah.
Little did I know that later on I'd be making a command line interface game that seems equally risky. So then I thought, well, what if I made it a single player game and you were doing both? You were both the guy that was going into the ship, and you were the person that was like telling him about the schematics. And I was like, how do I do that? And I was like, oh, well, it's not a person now, it's a robot, it's a drone that you're sending in there. And that was kind of, so that's the sort of path in my brain we went to get to the initial, you're piloting drones into derelict spaceships.
And that process was like 2-3 weeks, months? How long are we talking here between?
That is a really good. I probably had the initial concept, like where it was just spinning around in my brain till I actually decided to do a prototype of that.
Yeah.
That was probably months. It was probably like, if I had to guess, like 6 months or something like that, from like when I first started stewing around with it. And then I started drawing out a little spaceship, and then I was like, okay. I remembered there was a game jam, Tig Jam.
This was something you talked about in your GDC talk, which I watched earlier this week. You had like 4 ideas that you were going to do for the jam, I believe, and then the Duskers was sort of like the early prototype for that was one of the concepts that came out. Is that correct?
Yeah. And there's a lot of debate around that because I and I think I said this in that talk as well. Like, I was sure that either Ian or Alex had told me that I should put a command line interface in it, and both of them deny that. So
that is a brilliant thing to deny. What is essentially,
right. I mean, they're like, They're like, what are you talking about? And this happens to me a lot, where I'm like, oh man, that was so awesome that you gave me the idea for this thing, and they're like, what are you talking about? So either I came up with it and I just, wanted to blame someone for it, or they came up with it and didn't remember or didn't want to take the blame for it. But I always joke around that none of the great ideas that are made it into Duskers were mine.
Well, that is something I really wanted to talk about, because you mentioned this briefly in the GDC talk about the people who've watched me play the game and been drunk and terrified by it. There is no real combat in the game when you were faced with the creatures or whatever have you sort of comes up in the spaceships or in the crafts that you board. There is no way to defeat them, but apparently at some point there was some sort of combat that you could adapt to the drones.
Yeah, if you've
Why
ever
did you
played, because I hate my players. I mean, that's the short answer.
Yes, yeah, that's true. They do.
No, so that was what was really funny is that originally the game was like a reverse tower defense game. Like you would pilot your drones in.
Yeah.
And then you would set them up at the pinch points. You would open up a door, and you wanted the bad guys not to be able to get to you in your cockpit, where you're nice and
cozy,
yummy. And so so that was really cool.
Yeah.
And I kind of I never want to throw shade in another game, because I'm a game developer and I get like how it's hard and that everyone can tear down anything.
Yeah.
But I love the Endless Space series, and I love Endless. What's the 4X one they have? Endless. Legend.
Yes.
Endless Legend.
Yeah. Endless Legend. Yeah.
And then I think the same group made Endless. Was it Endless Dungeon or is it Endless?
Yeah, Endless Dungeon. That's
Endless Dungeon.
Yeah.
That is. I think that is what Duskers was going to be.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
Because I think in that one you do play that way. Like you decide where you're going to put people and things are running through, and it's like a tower defense style game.
Yeah.
And what was funny was that when I was playing it, I started realizing there was an optimal strategy. It was pretty much if there is branches to pinch points, you put it at the base branch where everything has got to funnel in.
Yeah.
And you put your turret there, and you keep doing that. Yeah. And so wherever the biggest funnel is, you put your thing, and then the next biggest funnel, you put the next one. And so there was just an optimal strategy. And then I remember when I played Endless Dungeon, and again, like I think it's a really good game, but for me, I felt the same way. They did things to mitigate it, but I think the thing they were fighting against is that there was an optimal strategy.
Yeah.
And so that was actually kind of relieving for me when I pivoted away from that. When I played the game, I was like, yes, this is the best way you could have done this game, and I felt like there was an optimal strategy. So what was funny was that I was realizing that was a problem, and that's when in the talk I mentioned I went to Alex Austin, who's he developed Gish, and he is currently doing Sub Rosa and like a whole bunch of games, and he said. It was just so funny. I was like, man, I'm struggling with the combat. It's just not coming together, and there's all sorts of problems. And he was like, well, like, why don't you just not have combat or something like that? It was just like, like you're having problem with like the tree. Why don't you get rid of the tree? And it was just such an obvious answer that I was like, you asshole. But it was so right. And so then I was like, all right, what if you didn't have weapons?
Yeah.
And this is so classically, if the game was not inspired at that point by Alien, then it definitely wasn't now, because it's like, crawling around in a space with scary things in it, in a ship, without weapons.
But I was gonna say, I think that the thing that I did have a question about this initially, about inspirations, because you talk about from a game perspective whether it was something like you bring up Thief on multiple occasions in the GDC talk, and obviously in a few interviews you've talked about NetHack, and then obviously the Endless series. But in terms of films and stuff like that, I think it's more close, especially in its nihilistic view, to films like Darkstar, more than Alien. I don't know if you've ever seen the I think it's a John Carpenter film from like the early 70s, I want to say. It's very similar. It had the same writer as Alien. But I was going to say, what other things sort of inspired, I guess, the look and feel of Duskers overall?
Yeah, I was trying to get, what actually was interesting to me is that, as you can see, like, I was trying to say, when the first prototype happened, I was just boxes in space. It was literally like in Unity with a cube and a spotlight on it and just blackness, and so you just drive around, you just open up doors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember Randy O'Connor was playing it, and another developer, and he was and he played it for 5-10 minutes, and he was like, I'm tense. He's like, I feel really tense. And I was like, interesting. Like that, I wasn't going at all for any kind of horror vibe at that point. I was going for this strategy kind of thing, and obviously I was leaning into the derelict space thing. But when he felt tense, I was like, if you get like an emotion out of someone in your like gray box prototype, like you lean into that emotion. And so I was like, all right, if you feel tense already and you feel like you weren't sure what was behind the door and all that stuff, I'm like, I need to lean into that. And so that kind of became like an emotional pillar, like that whole alone in the dark like thing.
That's the thing, is that like I think there's so much about the game in itself that is not just because the sound design is amazing and stuff like that, but also the fact that you don't use any music or anything beyond what would sound would be coming out of a computer from that era. You have this retro futurist vibe that's very late 70s, early 80s. It just bleeps and bloops. Like even to the point where if you do get attacked, all you hear is just beeps, and like that is it. You could have included like a monster scream or like sound and stuff like that, and it's incredible. Like, were those intentional decisions to really make it bare bones, like in the best way possible? Like what was sort of the sort of like what kind of like drew you to sort of keeping it like very, very sort of focused and distilled?
Yeah, I think that as an indie game, you really have to, or I guess you're afforded the fact, I guess any game, not an indie game, but like I really like leaning hard into stuff, right? Like it's like if you're gonna do it, go there. And so actually a game that I'll mention being a big inspiration is the game Capsule.
So what's the game? It just
it's called Capsule.
Oh, I don't know what that is. Oh wait, is that it's like spelled capsule with a K and it's like all lines and stuff?
No, it's a C, but it's got like a curved monitor and it's got a refresh on it.
Oh, I did not know this. Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
It's super atmospheric, like incredibly. And it was Adam Saltzman and Robin Arnott, who actually, you're talking about sound design, just as an aside, Ian Hicks, who made the soundtrack for my first game, which I thought was an awesome sound. I think the soundtrack might have been better than the game.
Yes.
He then came on to help me with Duskers and did an incredible job, as you can hear. And then toward the end of it, I actually stole Robin, who had done the sound design for Capsule, and he had extra time on his hands, and he was just working on other stuff, and I was just like, you please come. And he mentioned on a forum or something like that, on maybe a mailing list, that he was just like, hey, I'm a little bit burnt out on my current project. I've got a couple months. I just kind of want to do something else. And I love Robin, and I was like, this would be an excuse to hang out and jam on stuff and also get some awesome sound design in the game. So...
Sorry, I'm freaking out right now. I don't know why there's radiation flooding the rooms. What is happening?
And in your ship.
Whoa.
Yeah, it got into your ship.
Wait, what do you mean? Wait, hang on. Wait, hang on. I gotta... How do I not... I'm sorry.
It's fine. You gotta... I think if you take off, you'll be okay.
Oh my god. No, not leave! God, oh, this is... Okay, wait. Piece of commands. I'm so sorry. Exit. Oh my god. Okay. What do you mean we can't leave? Okay, we're leaving. Okay. I'm so sorry.
Not an easy game to play and talk.
No, I know, because I was literally the next thing I was gonna explain. I was like, how would you approach like just anybody who's playing Duskers for the first time? Because I think that the thing is that is very exciting about Duskers is that the other people that I've played with and the other people that I've talked about on the Duskers subreddit I don't think anybody's had a similar enough experience. I think there are bits and pieces that you've created because it's a very roguelike in fashion. But what do you feel like was the like, when did you feel like you had like a full prototype? Like, what was like the aha, like, this is what Duskers is as it sort of is now as a game?
That is a great question because it took a long time.
Yeah.
I think Duskers, so I did 3 prototypes, as you were saying, and one of them was just an action game.
Yes.
Where you were ricocheting off the walls and stuff like that, and that took, I couldn't believe it. Like, I think I got that thing out in like a week. Like, and then I continued to iterate on it, and then, you know, after another couple weeks, like, it was, you could tell what the game was gonna be, right?
Yes.
Then there was another one, possibly the nerdiest game in the world, Chess the Gathering, which was a mashup of Chess and Magic the Gathering.
Okay, now I need to know what okay. Why is
so
this
that
not
one that one probably took like 2 months.
Yes.
Right? But that had the advantage of I had paper prototyped it and stuff like that. And it's a board game essentially, so that was easy. Not easy, but straightforward.
No, I understand.
And then Duskers, like I said, I had to find it, and it just was hiding. It just kept zigging and zagging, and I think it took 6 months from when I started that prototype till when I got to that moment that I was like, this is the game. And I think that moment, I did finally set it up in the form that it is now. And this was before I got the procedural generation in it. And then I just set up a couple rooms to test the scenario.
Yeah.
And I really felt it, like that it could possibly work. And then I think when I finally added like just rudimentary procedural generation, and I had never made a roguelike before.
No.
And I put it in there and I started playing, and I just wanted to keep playing. And I was just like, all right, this is something.
Yeah.
I found a little bit of gold, and I think this could be a thing.
I was gonna say, because it's very, people who haven't played a virus named Tom, because I remember playing that like back in the day when I was at university. I had a friend who had it on Xbox Live, the arcade system that they used to have, which was very wonderful and very great for indie developers, and that's slipped a little bit in my personal opinion. But the point is that it's such a different game. I guess you do have, the only similarity is that you have I guess creatures that are places where they're not meant to be, as it were. But I mean, I think that is the only through line between the two concepts.
They're very different.
Yeah. So I was going to say, what was sort of, I mean, we don't necessarily have to talk it because obviously it's a very different game. But from A Virus Named Tom, what do you think was the sort of the things that you learnt that eventually you implemented into Duskers? Like what, because that was obviously a big experience for you.
Yeah. So A Virus Named Tom actually came about. I was like, could I actually like develop games, right?
Yeah.
Like on my own. Like
like games isn't your go-to. You can see behind you. You worked for DreamWorks for a little bit, and you've worked for film studios and stuff. And now you are
and so I had gone. I actually had started in games.
Oh wow!
Way back in the
day. Oh wow!
Yeah, I worked only for like a year and a half. I worked at a AAA game studio, and then I burnt out from that really quick. They weren't the nicest things back then. I don't know that they're the nicest places to work now.
Sure.
But so then I went to DreamWorks for almost 10 years. And I was like, if I'm gonna go back into games and I'm gonna get paid half nothing and work long hours, I might as well make my own games, do my own thing. And this was right, as you said, when X and A came out. You could develop on an Xbox, retail Xbox, instead of like having to get a developer kit for 20 grand and stuff like that. But I was like, can I actually do it? Like, if I actually was at home and I was trying to work on this game, would I actually do it, or would I like watch TV and masturbate? Right? Like, I didn't know. Right?
Yeah, no, that's look. I was made redundant at the top of COVID, and I can tell you now, as a creative, that is the biggest threat to whatever you do. It is no good.
Yes. So I decided there were a couple animators that were there.
Yes. That
we got together. And we were like, hey, let's make a game. So we kind of made this prototype. And from that prototype, I realized I love them. But I was like, I don't think we're ever going to finish this game. So I decided, I had 3 months that I took off. I took a sabbatical, essentially. And it was half over. And I was like, in 6 weeks, what could I turn this code into? And it was a very grid-based thing that you were doing.
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, okay, I could basically make like a connection puzzle game, right? And so the decision to make it was based on a previous game, and then thinking I could complete it in 6 weeks, maybe another month or two.
Yes.
Right.
Giving
this
yourself
classic.
The same amount of time
like,
as the developers of ET. You could definitely do it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I could definitely do it. So 2 to 3 years later, when I launched the game, I realized I'm like, wow, like, so if I realized on my second game, I was like, if I'm gonna make a game, I was like, this time it's not gonna, like, this time it's gonna be like, all right, intentional. It's gonna be like, I want to make this game. And I also realized that it could be my last game because I was just gonna be like the virus named Tom. I think it did well. Like, people liked it. It was well received, and it got me my name in places that I was able to get investment for my second game, but it did not make me money.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's the story you like. I think Indie Game the movie was very honest in its portrayal of like how indie devs at that time were kind of working. But I always found it so interesting and a little bit dishonest that they never talked about the financial aspect because it's very awkward. But most indie devs that I know that are friends of mine and stuff like that, they're like, no, you don't see shit, or if you see anything, you get most of it from merchandise. I don't think that there was too much merch for a virus named Tom or Duskers for that matter. But
if you're making money off merchandise as a game developer, I want to know your secret. Like,
well, I was gonna say I just finished Doki Doki Literature Club like 2 days ago for the first time ever, and as terrifying as that game is to me, afterwards I was like, I could probably buy those plushies. I'd have no problem with that. I know it's not reasonable, but the first thing I thought of when I finished, like, I think my second or third stream of Duskers, I was like, it'd be kind of cute just having a little drone, like just a little like scrap metal Raspberry Pi drone. But I realized that would be extremely expensive to develop.
Well, actually, so someone asked, and we sent them the model files, and they 3D printed them out.
Oh my god!
And so,
like one of the little drones. That's
Yeah.
I genuinely have to ask, and not because I'm drunk, because I'm very dumb. I am still confused by what some of the symbols in most of the rooms are. So I know that this is interface. I know that I have to have interface for that.
That's a terminal,
for the terminal. Wait, what is this one here? This is that fuel source?
Yeah,
oh,
I think so.
Yeah, and I have not got any of that. Also, I realized that because of the other units, I don't know if you've been watching how bad I've been doing. These are both disabled, and I can't turn them on. So I'm gonna have to close. Is
that from the radiation leak from the previous?
Yeah, from previously. Tim was the only one survived. And
I like
so, that. John and Gross are sort of being very fatal there. I mean, I guess I should explore R3 before we leave here. Sorry to interrupt you before, but that's
if you can. Yeah, I mean, if you power it, and then you have a motion sensor, so
I do. So I know that I'm okay here. But I can't power anything up because I mean, I could. That's the thing, is that's one thing I really appreciate.
You can power it up. You can open D36.
But then if I power it up, this is what I didn't want this chat to turn into, where it's like, hey, could you coach me in this game? No, it's I think that, but if I power it up, I have to leave one of the drones on there. But I figured out that if they're disabled, I can't power up the drone to power up the generator.
No, you can power the generator, open the door, and then you can leave the generator and still go through the door. It'll be open.
Okay.
And then there's another generator. There's another power inlet in the room that you would go to.
That's a really good point. All right, so if I just swap this, hang on, let's just swap. Sick. All right, and then oh my god, what am I not gonna need? I need. Let's get rid of toe.
Yeah, get rid of the toe.
Yeah.
You can always come back if you find something.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. So if I do generator here, okay, cool. And then I do motion. Oh wait, that's not how you spell motion.
You're good. You know that R2 is clear.
Yeah, I was gonna say R2
you just open up D36. R7 is unknown. R7 is unknown, and there's an open door on the other side. I would not open up DAD.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's
D36,
the thing is,
you're good.
That's one thing I really appreciated in your GDC talk, is that you talked about the fact that the game switches, because you originally had some concepts that were just survival based, but you talked about it being a planning based game. And as someone who was very bad with plans, The game that stops being a planning-based game so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that radiation thing fucked me over for, I think, the rest of the game. We'll see how quickly I die.
I think that's one of the funniest things about this game, is it goes so quickly from, like, a methodical, I'm doing it, it's also slowly paced and all that stuff, to crap, to, wait, why is one drone dead? Why is the other drone dead? Why did I just suck everyone out of space? It's like, it's very fast. Which is actually kind of a design. It wasn't intentionally designed. I mean, it was intentionally designed that way.
Yeah.
But the fact that it goes so quickly to death is not only humorous, but it's also kind in a way. Because it's not like you just kind of, like, you're bleeding to death and you slow. It happens sometimes. You get, like, 2 drones left.
Yeah.
But when you only have, like, 1 drone left, it's a Hail Mary when you go into a ship and it's going to work or not.
Every room is like, this could be it.
Yeah. So it isn't a game. Some games you have to worry about balancing, where you're like, oh no, this is just like a diminishing returns kind of thing, where like you get into this death spiral and that makes it not fun. And so Duskers doesn't suffer from that most of the time, because you go from everything's hunky-dory to game over.
Because I was going to say that, like, how do you construct? I mean, this is something you learnt, I guess, while creating the game. How do you go about designing a roguelike where all of the pieces fit? Because I imagine it's not just, oh well then, because every single ship is you can completely correct me on this, but it is not oh my god, it's procedurally generated. Is it not? Right? Yeah. So I'm wondering, like, how do you make that work each time? Like, what's sort of the sort of the coding or the sort of the film?
Yeah, so there's a lot of balancing that you try to do. But I think this is the most fun. Some games are more fun to develop than others, in my opinion. And a roguelike is super fun to develop, in my opinion, because you can play the game.
Yes.
Like, when I made a virus named Tom, I started realizing that as I played the game, I started enjoying the levels that were dexterity-based more than the puzzle-based ones.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I had played the puzzles so many times I knew how to solve them. But the dexterity ones, I always needed to be on my game, so they were more fun.
Yeah.
But with Duskers, I could keep playing. Like, me playing Duskers as a developer is the same as someone who is a player playing the game, because every time it's new, every time it's different. So that's really exciting. And then also you don't have to worry about, like, you make something like a giant epic ARPG like Skyrim or something like that. Like, the QAing that thing is insane. Whereas, like, and don't get me wrong, the difficulty of QAing a systems-based game is the systems interact, and then you get weird interactions, which is the joy of the game, and also the pain of the game, because sometimes exciting things happen. Like, I'll never forget Brendan, who was the artist on the game.
Yeah.
He was doing a trick one time where he only had 1 drone left, and he really wanted an upgrade that was on one of his dead drones. But as you know, when a drone dies,
I'm experiencing that right now.
It becomes like bait, right? It's like, because you want to rescue it, but whatever killed it is over there.
Yeah, that's literally what is happening right now. It's like, okay, Twicky, you are dead, and I can't move past you, and I can't pick you up, so I'm just gonna steal your shit. Like, that's all I've got going for me right now.
Oh, you don't have a toe?
I tried to tow, but it said that cannot tow Twiggy because
it's
destroyed.
completely dead.
Oh, sorry, destroyed, not disabled. That's my bad. So no, sorry, continue talking about Brendan's Hail Mary.
Oh, yeah, so he opened up we had put in a system that when you open up an airlock, we had just made it. Originally, you open up an airlock and it gets sucked out, right? And when we were doing the prototype, it would just, kind of disappear. But then we added in the code that it would just move toward the point.
Yeah.
So he was several rooms over. He opened up an airlock to create a vacuum and was going to deal with the radiation damage, and then closed. No, I'm sorry. He opened up the vacuum to move the drone all the way close to him, and then closed it so that then he could go and loot things out of it without having to deal with the enemy.
Yeah. I'm trying to do that right now.
I had never considered that. Like, I had never thought of that when we designed the game. And so whenever you see something like that where the system is doing something, it's like you've created a little world and you weren't expecting that. Like, that's always super exciting.
Because I think that's the thing, and this is something you also talked about in I can't remember if it was Rock Paper Shotgun or PC Game. You were interviewed by someone and you were talking about the fact that Duskers in itself does have a plot. It has a storyline, and obviously Duskers in itself is a point to the title. But you appreciated how people were making up their own storylines as they were going on, and I think is that something that you designed for? Because I mentioned that obviously some parts of it are bare bones, like story and sort of sound wise. But like, what do you feel? What do you feel sort of like helps, or rather hinders, in sort of building that story or building that world? Because I think that it's very, very different from a lot of other, just space set games like FTL or even Alien Isolation for that matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what's really interesting is Tanya Short and friends made this book. It's funny because I like to write stories, and I thought it was very funny that I finally got published in a book, and it wasn't about. It was me writing about writing. It wasn't one of my stories. But so that was about procedural storytelling.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I honestly think that the chapter we wrote, we kind of rushed it, and it kind of ended up okay, but I'm not super happy with it. And when it's printed, you can't go and edit it. But that's a big part of this game is that I wanted there to be a story in there because I love story. There was a story in a virus named Tom, but the thing is that I didn't want it to compete with the player story. Like, so I knew that in a roguelike, the strongest thing is the player story, right? No one's posting on the forum about the linear story or anything like that. They're posting about like, I went in and then I did this thing, and most of the time it's I did something really dumb and it's really funny.
Yes.
Right. It's like I turned on the ship defenses and everything went black, and I was like, what happened? And then I realized that they shot me.
Yeah.
Because I'm an enemy in this ship, right? And so that's the beauty that I love about roguelike players is that instead of getting like frustrated and rage quitting, like they think it's funny because they're like, there's this, as long as you're fair to the player, they're like, that's a system that you need to justify it. Like if that had been completely unfair, they would have rage quitted. But because they're like, I guess that makes sense if I turn on the ship defenses, I'm not part of this ship, that it would fire on me too, right? And then people know that, and then they forget that their drones are in there, and it kills them. And it's whenever you can get someone to, whenever it's their fault, whenever they feel like they have ownership over that, they're okay with it.
I was gonna say, I think that's in itself like what people call like horror movie logic and stuff like that, where I think that, not just games like this, but I think 2020 overall has kind of proven is that people will make very bad decisions when there is any type of pressure. Like I think that's something that I think games like this have definitely shown, and I think that helps build that storyline, that builds that sort of that feeling of dread. I think that is one word that I would use to describe Duskers as a concept as whole. Sorry, I interrupted you when you.
No, absolutely. And dread is exactly it. And I think there's like a slow boil. I think that other games don't. I hadn't seen a lot in other games. I had seen it in some, like when you play Silent Hill, and you're walking through the fog, and you have this radio that crackles when there are bad things about. And it starts crackling and you can't see everything, but it doesn't crackle when they're like 3 feet away and they're about to jump scare you. Yeah. It crackles like when they're nearby. And so that creates that sense of dread. It creates that slow boil as it is. And so because the game is so strategic and it is at such a slow pace, it's intentionally at a slow pace. I wanted it to be most of the time, if not all of the time, when you die, it was because you made a poor strategic choice. Now, sometimes that's because you had to. You had to risk it because you were low on scrap or whatever. But I wanted it to be that way. And so that's what the game is it's like you've got all the time in the world, and then all of a sudden when you open the door, you have like 3 seconds to respond.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be a dexterity game, but the real-time nature of this game, it would be so sad without it because originally I was making it as a paper prototype, and you would move like almost in a turn-based way. So the real-time element of this is almost a turn-based game, right? This is almost the next comp. But the real-time element of it is not so that you have to have Twitch mechanics. I didn't want that. I wanted it so that you had that visceral, real feel to it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was just stressed out because the results are inconclusive for the first room. I am listening. I swear to God, I am listening.
I'm gonna cheat and tell you it's okay.
I know, like, this is something I think I remember. I think the third or fourth time I streamed the game, I was way too cocky. I think I'd gotten through like 5 ships without anybody dying or anything terrible, and I threw a creature out to the airlock, and I was like, you know what, guys, don't worry about it. I think like the first room you're always in, you're always safe. Don't worry about it. Let's pop it open. Let's just go. In fact, let's use no commands and let's just drive everybody in there. And then the second room, the door was already open.
The door was open.
Died. So instantly.
The other thing you can do right now is you can dock to A2.
I know. Well, I thought about doing that. Oh, yeah. I just because I know that there's a generator there, but I still want to explore A1.
That is another thing that's the beauty of this game.
Geez.
Is this game.
No. Sorry. It's fine.
But you are correct that the first room is always clear.
Yes.
But it could be that there's an open door. Exactly. So you were right. I was wrong.
No. But that's the whole point. And I think that's the thing is that the fairness comes, and this is what I was trying to explain with horror game logic before. I think the fairness comes with understanding what you've built as the game mechanics combined with what you expect from the player. Like, I think that's where things meld the best for game designing, in my personal opinion. For example, last night I was playing Half-Life Alyx, which I've yet to finish, but there's a whole section where they have the barnacle creatures and they're hanging from the rooftop and stuff like that, and the whole level is filled with like different types of explosives, because clearly the Combine have set up an area where they were going to blow all these barnacles up, and the only way you know how to destroy the barnacles is you would throw like an explosive barrel and it would just blow them all up, but you can't do that because that will kill you. And I think that it's the exact same sort of design here, where there is safety and expectation, but you've set it up with the sort of the roguelike element where I think I've seen a level like this before, but because of the nature of the game, I'm still terrified. I think that if at any point Duskers became not terrifying, I think that's where it would fall apart really quickly. Like, how do you feel like you keep that tension up through the whole game?
I do think that that's the key, right? So, like, if R3 had an enemy,
I'm moving back to the door,
and all the doors were closed,
yeah,
you would feel, at that point, you would feel like it's a dice roll, right? And you would feel like kind of betrayed as a player, because that's not super fair, right? No. But if R3 had an open door to it, right? That's when all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm always going to leave the first room clear, but in an extenuated circumstance where you can see why it happened, you get kind of hosed.
Exactly.
And I think one of the things that's really interesting about Duskers, and sometimes you can't get the feedback from, like, it would be so awesome to be able to poll the player base, and I guess you could, basically, by
that's what
on
the
the
Steam
forum and stuff like that.
For. Yeah.
But so one of the things that's really interesting, and I get some complaints about this, but I hope that some people appreciate it. What you could really do, so you have a random number generator, right?
Yeah.
And you're procedurally generating things, and everything there's a huge wide probability space, right? Like, so many things can happen. And then what you got to do is you got to start culling that probability space, because it's people have to learn the game, and they have to get, you don't want them getting totally hosed like right away. You want them to be able to build up and stuff like that, right? So you play FTL, like, you know that the first couple ships are going to be easier, and you can build up, right?
Yeah.
But what I wanted those player stories, right? I wanted those great player stories. So what I decided to do is that your first run or two, I have the training wheels on, where I do have it kind of, funneled down. And then once you're done with that, once you like understand how to play the game, I take the training wheels off and I widen it out. So your second system that you jump to could be insanely difficult, right?
Yeah.
And actually, I think you can even start on a system, even though the first ship is probably not going to be crazy. Even within that system, there can be really difficult ships, right? And you need to know that and like jump away from it. But I thought that created more player stories, because all of a sudden on this one run, you start off and things are really, really hard, right? If they always start off easy, then like it limits the player stories, if that makes sense. It limits the probability space. So some people don't appreciate that. Because you can just open up the game and start in on things, and brutal, or it can be easy, or it can be all these things. I actually added a mode to the options that says, hey, like, please ensure for God's sake that like the first system is kind to me. But I didn't want to make that decision. I wanted to open that space up and have them experience that and then be able to turn that off. Actually, what's crazy is the options. When you actually go into the options,
I'm just looking at that now.
We added a lot of options. To be able to change the difficulty, to be able to change everything. Because I remember playing Civilization, and I was having so much fun playing it. And then I went into the options, and I'm like, oh, archipelagos or this, that, or the other thing. I was like, that's so cool. So anytime someone on the forums complained about something, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it my way as the designer, and I'm going to give you the option to say, you know what, Tim? You're an idiot. I hate you. Like, no, not cool. The only one I'm actually sad that I didn't turn off, I kind of wish that I had allowed you to turn the slime off, because some people just cannot stand it.
Wait, hold on. What the fuck is the slime? I have not gotten to the slime in this game. What the what the... Alright, well now I'm terrified of slime, more so than being a dungeon master.
You might not even think of it as slime. It's the thing that grows from the wall. Have you seen this?
No, I don't think so. I genuinely, I think is like... I usually die in the same star system I start with, so
it's one of my favorite enemies, because when I thought it up, I literally thought, like, maybe this will be too weak. Like, it doesn't attack, it moves very slowly, it just simply replicates, and it became one of the most difficult enemies. Like, I think if I'm on a ship, I think it's the thing I'm possibly most afraid of.
Oh man.
And it's very passive and it's very slow, and so it was opposite of the swarms and the brutes that leap at you and all that stuff. Like, it's completely opposite, and I love it. I'm a big fan of, rather than having, and I don't fault these games. I love Borderlands, that I can pick up a different machine gun and it feels a little bit different. I love that, but I'm like, if I'm gonna have enemies, I'm gonna make them incredibly distinct and feel very different and have very different strategies, because this is a strategy game essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really fun to make an enemy that is the polar opposite of another enemy, and think that means it's not going to work because of all the reasons the other enemy works, and then have it work.
I am currently terrified. Well, one, I'm terrified of the swarms. The swarms is probably... Because the thing is, like, in my head, there are two different types of creatures that I think of when I think of Duskers. Which is... Okay, first of all, why is the radiation seeping into the rest of the... Is that because of the vent?
The door... Well, no, the door is open.
Which... Oh, fuck. Okay, hold on. Okay. Oh, man. I think I should just abandon... Oh, no, the seal...
You're okay.
I know, But the two things that I think of is the swarms, because they just come at you. I'm pretty sure there's a great clip that there's two questions that the chat has asked, which I'll ask you in a second. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Grass Dragon, who's one of my regular mods, she has definitely clipped the time where I was very cocky and I popped into the second room and there was just a swarm that just went straight for me. Okay, so radiation is definitely in R4 and R3. Okay, seal's gonna fail in A1. I think we need to get everybody out of here. I want to check R6. I'm gonna just check R6. D4.
I think it's fine. Everything's gonna be fine.
Oh man, I don't trust anybody who says that. All right. Okay, I think we're okay. No, we're good. There's nothing in here. I also forget because I failed coding. I did comp sci for my first year at university, and I failed that whole first year. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna get everybody out of here. I do play this game like a coward. But then I watch other people other people do the stream, do long-term streams, and it's the same thing with FTL, where it's like the safest thing you can do is play with a level head. I think that's very. I didn't even pick up anything. Oh no, I picked up some scrap. My partner is in the chat, and she's asking why there is a Shrek post, and it's because you worked for DreamWorks. Did you work on Shrek 2, or is that just your favorite DreamWorks?
No, I worked on Shrek 2.
What were you doing for Shrek 2? Because I didn't check your IMDb.
I was in a department that at the time was called clothing and finaling. So we did things like dresses and anything that required a cloth simulation.
Yes, yeah.
And then we also finaling was back in the day. I mean, it might be even built into things now, but if you grab something and it deforms, like
wow.
we would create the deformations and stuff like that. So if like Donkey went up on a surface and he put his hooves on it, like we'd want to push it in a little bit. Yeah, and then even Shrek he has like a tunic and there's a flap on it.
Yeah.
And then Fiona's dress. There were flags on the castle and anything that was basically a cloth simulation or deformation based stuff.
That's
I wish my buddy, he was the one that got to do Puss in Boots with the big eyes.
Yeah.
If you think about it, we were deforming the character model.
Yes.
So that the eyelid would be so low and so high so that it would be so big. So that was a finaling task. So I didn't get to do that. I wish I had, because it's such a memorable thing. But yeah, that's what I did on Shrek 2.
That's incredible. We have Shrektoberfest every single year where we play the Shrek games and have a Shrek quiz and stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
They're very excited about that as well. We've got we've had a few people who were speedrunners of the Shrek games, which is, I mean, that's what I was going to ask, whether or not it was the Shrek movies, the Shrek games that you'd worked on.
Yeah, it was the movies. I didn't work on the game.
Because I was going to say, so you now work for Bad Robot Games. I'm not quite sure if you still do and stuff like that. Was that because of Duskers? Has there been talks about there being a Duskers movie? Like, what do you feel like is sort of the next thing that you're sort of hoping to, if you're allowed to talk about it? If you're allowed.
Yeah, I'm definitely not.
Yeah, I was gonna say the most secretive company in production.
Actually, that's what right here. There's I don't know if you can see it. Wait. I haven't yet put it in its own thing. There's a little Star Wars poster in the Shrek poster. Yeah. So that was episode 9.
Oh shit! Oh man.
But yeah, so the Bad Robot Games. It was exciting. So I think that what was really exciting for me. The joke I made was that I had worked in film and I had worked in games, and I was going to make games at a film studio.
Yes,
I was just really. It was It was when they approached me. It was one of those things, just like Duskers or anything else. I was like, does that work? Like, they were talking about making games in a new way. They were talking about co-development and working with studios, and I think a lot of us have witnessed Hollywood and games and how they don't work a lot of times.
Yes, I don't wish to go any further as to ruin future career opportunities. So when I talked to Dave Baronoff, who was there at the time, who was starting to start up this games division, and JJ Abrams, who's the head of the studio, the cut of their jib was very different. I kind of went in like being like, I don't want to make, be the person that like, oh, we're making a movie, so now let's just crap out the game. And then, and all that stuff. And they were like, we don't want to do that either. And they were like, honestly, if we want to do that, why would we hire the guy that made the command line interface weird alien game? It makes no sense. Fair. That's
fair. That's fair. And so I was just like anything. I was just like, wow, that is really different and really weird and really interesting. And I'm always drawn toward things that I don't know. I always joke around. I'm drawn toward things that would make a good GDC talk. Like either this is the new way to make games, or this is why we don't make games this way. Yeah. like, win or lose. Yeah. If it makes a good talk, like that is interesting to me because I would learn something, and I like innovating, and I like. Yeah. I'm okay with failing. I want to be there and try it, right? So I jumped on board with that, and we were just starting that. It was just myself and Dave at the time, and now. I don't know. I think we're at like 12 people or whatever. We're growing.
Yeah. That's big for even just an indie studio. That's huge. Because I was gonna say, oh man, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or if you're allowed to talk about it at all. I do remember that there was a rumor and then eventually a leak. Because I'm pretty sure Bad Robot helped create Cabin in the Woods, because that's Matt Reeves, and obviously JJ helped produce that with Joss Whedon. That they were going to have Cabin in the Woods characters in Left 4 Dead 2, and because the film didn't do so great, I think it's a fucking classic in my opinion. They didn't get integrated, which was a real bummer and stuff like that. Damn it! Oh, I'm sorry. I was just trying to close that door. There we go. All right. That room's safe. But I was going to say, so I obviously you can't talk about anything that you're doing at Bad Robot at the moment. Is there any future plans for DLC or anything that you're going to create for Duskers down the track? Because I know that people are sort of still hyped about it. You obviously are still you did quite well. This is from what I saw. I don't have any actual stats on this, but a lot of people joined the subreddit during the Christmas sale. A lot of people purchased the game and stuff.
Yeah, that's what was amazing to me. Like I love the game, and I think that if I hadn't stopped working on it, like I would have kept going forever, because I remember when we decided to launch, I was ready to just work on it for another year because there was so much that we could do. But at the time there was a lot going on in life, and so it was a strange thing. I guess I'll just be honest about it. Like I was my wife at the time, Holly, and I were struggling, and I was like, is the problem that I'm an independent game developer? Is it that I'm running my own business? Because it's a lot of work and stress and all that stuff. So I was kind of like, you know what, I need to shut it down to make sure that this isn't the problem.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yeah.
So so that's what happened. And so then it kind of became honestly kind of difficult for me, because it was like this baby of mine that I loved, but like kind of like it was this weird thing where I was like, I kind of had to walk away from it a little bit. And this sort of in general, I mean, Misfits Attic is still a thing, and of course, you know, but it was kind of like I need to sort of put that on the shelf. And then going back and looking at it was also kind of painful, because it reminded me of all that stuff, and it was a really weird thing. And I made a post on the forum a little bit. I didn't go into that detail about it, but I was kind of like, I kind of need to step away for a little bit because of family and stuff like that. So but Jeremy and I, who was the developer on it, so of course at that point we needed to walk away, and I needed to I was happy that I was able to find work for, you know, any of my full-time employees and stuff like that, and myself included. And so I talked with Jeremy. I literally had a conversation with him a week or two ago, and I keep saying, like, so he's on another project.
Yes.
And I'm on another project, and it's like I would love to be able to do something, and it's just about like being able to find the time. And then I'm also just so afraid, because the code base, there's a fear once you stop working on a code base that if you go in, you will create more bugs than you will squash, and like you will add new features to the game that don't work, and you know, you'll mess up what is there. There's just this weird, I don't know, maybe it's just a me thing, but as a developer, there's kind of like this crystal face that's like sitting there, and I'm just like, oh, I could fix this one thing, and then I'm thinking of the comedy where it smashes, everything is ruined, right? Not that you can't revert back with revision control and stuff like that, but it's a whole thing. So we keep debating, because that's what's amazing about the community is that, like, you know, they love it, and I love them for it, and they're passionate. And then, you know, every now and then someone evangelizes about it, like a YouTuber will find it or whatever, and all of a sudden, it's a thing again, right? And that's crazy that we're coming up on 5 years.
Well, I was gonna. That was another question I wanted to ask. Was like, what was the initial response? But don't, keep going. This is very important. You're being very honest and emotional about this.
Yeah, but it's, you know, and it comes up on 5 years, and we keep saying that, like, we should do something. We should do some development about it, but there's just this fear. So to be honest, there have also been games that I have, you know, I have done various prototypes of that could be like considered sort of spiritual successors to it, like spiritual sequels or whatever, like where they are in the same vein, and like they have the same DNA, even though it is not Duskers as it is. But it's just, you know, there's just a lot that goes into making a game and figuring out all of the fun aspects of that. When you're an indie, you're just like, okay, we're gonna make this, and if it doesn't work, then I just don't have savings anymore. But when you're working for a game studio, like they you know, they want, you know, there's just a lot going on, so it's a more involved process. So and also they're bigger scoped things. So I'm just basically dancing around it right now. But the honest answer is there's nothing planned right now.
No. But that's the thing. Is like, I knew that if either you could talk about it, or it's just like you've been going back and forth. But with that, to go back to my previous question, is what was the initial response to Dusk? Because yeah, it has been 5 years, close to 5 years since it's been released. I heard about it from I can't remember his last name, but his name's George, and he has a company, he has a YouTube channel called Super Bunny Hop, which he does a thing called Games from My Inbox, where he will literally just take whatever indie devs have sent him, and he'll like play through whatever he's been given, either a demo or a full game, for like a month, and then just report back. And Duskers was one of those games. Like I felt bad. I always feel bad for indie developers when I come late to the party, because it feels like it's always been happening, like a neighbor that you're not willing to talk with that lives underneath you. Like it's just like all right, you guys seem to be having a great time. I'd like to join in. But yeah, what was the initial response to the game? Because I know that it's not easy to market anything, let alone.
No, actually, that was one of the things about Duskers is that I realized it was such a weird game, and would appeal to such a niche demographic, and so I decided. And also, marketing a game is just. It's such a pain. So I was like, word of mouth is where we're going, right?
Yeah.
Like Reddit, all of these things. So what's really funny is we were going to launch early access.
Yes.
And it was literally 2 weeks before we launched early access. And I was like, I made a game for myself, and I'm the only one who likes this game.
Fuck. Okay. Yeah. No, I've been there.
Because up until the launch of A Virus Named Tom, like I put out a trailer, like people were excited, there was buzz going on, people were, wish listing and this, that, and the other thing. And with Duskers, I mean, with early access, like I had a mailing list from A Virus Named Tom is a very different game. I knew I wasn't going to get everybody that loved a co-op puzzle game to come in and with my command line interface game. But it was just silent. It was just dead, and like nobody was responding. No one was responding to anything. And I also hadn't done any marketing. I hadn't really led up to it because I was hoping word of mouth would carry it. But I was so busy developing the game toward the end, like you're crunching, that I didn't have time to really promote it or do anything like that.
Yeah.
And the developers over at oh my God, why am I I am terrified right now.
I just lost signal from your drone, and I've been carrying the entire time. No, we're okay.
We added that stuff toward the end.
I fucking hate it. It makes me so upset. It's like because I've only ever played Five Nights at Freddy's like once, and anytime the thing goes down for a second, I'm like, cool, I'm dead now. I'm just gonna hang out here until I die. It's great. All right. I really need to use. Oh God, no! Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I don't try not to scream. It's not good for anybody. It doesn't make anybody feel happy. Sorry about that. I'm okay.
Makes me happy.
I'm okay.
This is the problem. This is the people who have to develop roguelike video games. They have to take joy in other people's pain. Because otherwise you couldn't do it.
Okay, my chat is playing my girlfriend doing the last post. It's fine. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Tim. I'm still focused. I'm just trying to think now. So, okay, in this scenario, we will get back to those questions. In this scenario, it's disabled, but it's not dead. And I have no way to check if the swarm is in R3. What would be your suggestion here?
That's one. So you closed the door after that happened. Is that what happened?
I mean, we'd have to roll back the tape, but yeah, I think that is the scenario.
Yeah. I mean, this is a question. Where do you think the swarm is?
I mean, I could at least.
It's probably in. It's probably in there with.
It is probably in R6. Yeah. It's totally. Sorry, I'll just let my chat know. It's totally fine to do sounds. That's for me to deal with. I left them on for a reason. It's not Tim's responsibility. Although he does have the option to leave the conversation at any point and be like, "This is not worth it." Also, if you do have a hard out, please let me know because we have been streaming live for over an hour at this moment, so it's completely up to you. Okay, I'm gonna bum rush R3. I'm gonna open D29, and if things go bad, I'm gonna go from D29 to D28, and then if things go bad, it's John is gonna be the last person alive here. Oh my goodness, this is actually something I wanted to talk about in regards to how people connect with the drones, because that was one thing you said during the GDC talk, is that there's no human beings in this game. It's just drones, and I want to know how you sort of like how you feel about the fact that people get connected to the drones.
That's like the best thing. That was the hope. There's a couple things that you do.
Sorry. Okay, it's both.
Fine.
It's
totally
both.
Fine.
It's both.
They're friendly. They're hugging you. There's 2 in there.
Oh God.
There's 2 enemies in there.
The one thing I didn't expect. Sorry, I'm gonna. Sorry.
That's my favorite thing too, when the door is like is showing that it's trying to close.
I hate it so much. Okay, all right, sorry, keep going.
Yeah,
sorry.
so I actually just got an email, I think a month ago.
Yes, yeah.
And it was I haven't actually gotten it as an email. I got it as very early feedback.
Yes.
And it was, if they were Space Marines, the game would be better because then you would care about people. And this was early feedback I got from another designer whom I adore. And later on, he was like, I was completely wrong. And the thing that I said was, well, there were 2 reasons. This real simple reason that they're not Space Marines is because I wanted the game to feel real. Like, I don't think you would be as scared if you didn't think it was real, right?
That's a very good point.
And so if it's a Space Marine and you tell them to go somewhere and you're clicking and they're going there, that's not how Space Marines work, or at least none that I know. All the Space Marines that I know, like, they kind of might wander over there, but they might have a cigarette, right? Like, you don't know. But a drone, it will do what you say, and so that is completely, like, it makes sense in the world. It's diegetic, right?
Yeah.
So, but then the other thing that I always felt is I was like, of course I can make you feel for a person, but if I can make you feel for a toaster,
yes, yeah,
you will feel that you are slightly insane.
Yeah.
Because, like, you're that upset over this thing, or you feel that you let this thing down, that all it ever does is exactly what you tell it to do because it is a toaster.
That's a very good point.
And if I can make you feel for that thing, and one layer beyond that, you realize that you feel for that thing and you shouldn't, then you're starting to get into a place that I want you to be, whereas, like, I'm alone in the middle of space, and my only friends are toasters, and I'm starting to talk to them, and I'm crazy. And that's what I feel like you would feel like if you were a drone operator going from derelict ship to derelict ship. Eventually, you would start to feel crazy, and you would start to feel like you were having conversations with toasters, right?
Yeah.
And so if I can get someone there, I was like, then I've won. And then I remember reading a review where the reviewer was literally talking about, like, feeling crazy like that, and I was like, it was the best moment. It's so rare as a creative, I feel. Maybe because I'm not an amazing creative, I don't know. But it's so rare that, like, something weird like that you actually intended is actually received. So many times you're like, I wanted them all to really feel for the duck or whatever, and everyone's like, I hate the duck, and you're just like, okay. Like
ducks gotta
people
go.
are people. They feel what they feel. Whatever, right? You're wrong. That you should feel for the duck. But every now and then you put something, you intend something, and then you actually hear back from someone that they felt that thing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You're like, wow. So I find it rare and special. And so that was a really cool moment for me.
I was going to say that the chat has actually pointed out, Pig Machine, who's another regular of mine, he's pointed out that there is something interesting about the fact that they have zero agency. So no, like you're literally supplementing your decisions and your autonomy onto them. And then he brought up the Mars rover when it was upset that it was powering down, and it was like there was like the last message it said is like, it's getting dark and the battery is low. That is heartbreaking just to hear from, like, an autonomous machine.
And I think there's a thing called apophenia. And it's about like making kind of it's about interpreting noise as something. It's what we do. We look at clouds and we say that's a unicorn, right?
Yes, yeah.
It's just a bunch of blobby, cloudy stuff, right? I mean, it's also a unicorn, but so that's the thing. If you can make people feel that, like, if you can make them take that noise and that stuff, and you know, you look at like RimWorld and you look at all these things, and that's where player stories come from, is this interpreting all this stuff. And so I think that's the power of it. To your point, when you tell who is in here, John, when you tell John to go in there and John gets his face eaten off, you know, his little tin face eaten off, you feel extra bad because you know that you told John, and John was like, I trust you. I trust you. I'm gonna go in there. It's gonna be fine. Tell me where to go. And then when it all goes wrong, you feel extra bad about it.
I think that is how I think that most people. I mean that is just the basis of sort of the development of gaming in general. Is that we do feel. I think there is a baseline emotion that we do feel about video games in general, in the fact that we want to succeed. We want a goal to obtain. But I think that there's definitely good examples. There's very few good examples of horror games that are able to pull off not just atmospheric, but also the actual tying the game mechanics in there. Do you think, like, how difficult was it to sort of implement the different types of things that you could do as the drones? Because it feels limited until you like sort of get to a certain point when you realize that like just having motion is like a lifesaver. How did you get down to like those sort of finer points for sort of each drone?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that you didn't have like so many options and so many things, right? You want to like make sure, like for me, if you pick up an upgrade, it needed to have its distinct personality and be really good at a certain thing, and for it to change the game. I wanted it so that when you picked up something, it would change the way that you played it. And that's why I break things, so that you have to adapt.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, there's no choice. Survival is adapting in this game. And so, yeah, coming up with all of those, they became straightforward after a bit, like when you start thinking about the different things that you can do. And that's what I wanted people to feel like. I also always wanted you to feel, and this is maybe a little bit hippy dippy, but I wanted you to feel that you were using technology. We have this weird relationship with technology, right? Where it can facilitate so much, but like it is not us, right? So it's like I like the idea that you have to speak to the drone the way the drone needs to be spoken to, and you can only do the things that it allows you to do. And so it's like you're speaking this other language, and you're removed. Everything in the game is you're one step removed. You're not going in there. You're not speaking the language you speak. Everything is through this guise of technology that is creating just a slight dissonance between what you perceive and what's going on out there. And that information, that lack of information, is where I think tension comes in. Because I can't see everything. All I can see is what the drone can see, and I see a motion sensor, but like it's yellow, or you know what I mean. Like I can't see it, so that's where tension comes.
I completely like that idea of tension is. I think that the way that you've done it is unique from how I feel about most games, or most horror games in general, where it feels very binary, especially with something like Alien Isolation, where within the first about 30, maybe 40 minutes, you know who the enemies are of the game outside of the xenomorph and sort of what can sort of trigger them. Where I know I feel way more tense from just, I mean, this is an easy way to show you. I feel more tense from results inconclusive rather than just seeing a red. Because red is like, okay, let's move them from here to here and possibly flush them out. But it's, I mean, this is something that you talked about in your GTC talk about going beyond realism, but creating that feeling of isolation. Do you feel as though it is, because this is something personal, that I'm more scared about the fact that it just looks like squares and almost looks like a 1970s version of Asteroid, compared to if you built it into, like, it's literally just the view of the drones. Was there at any point where a prototype of like adding in sort of creatures like that are a little bit more sort of physical and stuff like that, like more similar stuff like the slime and stuff like that?
We talked about putting like a camera on the drone, so you could actually see, like almost like a CRT display and stuff like that.
Okay, good. Glad that was cut.
It's a lot of, the thing is that, again, that's how I see the world. Whereas like right now, this slam imagery, like where it's casting out a ray, that would be how it would see the world, right? And so like the camera, even though it was a CRT, that was how I see the world.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure we kept that abstraction in. And to your point, with I think the schematic, I think the reason it's so terrifying is because you could imagine this being a real schematic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like this could be. Like it's not beyond reason. Whereas if all of a sudden we add in all this detail and you're just a camera above it, it's like what's motivating that, right? Like how am I a camera hovering above this thing, and now that it's real, it's not real, if that makes sense, because like that's not how we perceive the world. There aren't giant cameras up here. Now you could say that there's no camera above this drone right now, but this is how, if it mapped out around it, and then you got a display of that, and that's why you see like the vector graphics for it, because that's the assumed position of it based on its rotation and stuff like that. So all of this is basically, I think, in your mind, and this is why I had some fans, and I can't believe it, and I love it, and actually friends that would go into their basement and like turn, like, because it was cold down there, and like turn off all the lights and put on their headphones, and they were in a cockpit.
Yeah.
You know? And like, I think the reason, and that's why the screen is your screen, and that's why we have a boot at the beginning, right? Yeah.
I'm very tense right now, but no, I swear to God, I was paying attention. I do think that there is something like inherently, because you were saying before about sort of looking at it in a realistic perspective, but I think that the way that you do it, and this is from a very, very basic understanding of game mechanics and how you sort of built this, in that it's scary and the tension is there because it goes to the fundamentals of fear. We're afraid of the unknown, so the more unknowns you create, the more it ramps up constantly, like you were saying before about that sort of tension, that winding it up. And I think that, I mean, right now, I'm so fucking scared of, like, one, don't want to open D11, because don't know what's in there, and also I don't know what to do with what's in room 4 now. But I felt that, oh god, this is, okay, let's see, D8, and hopefully it goes from room 4 to room 3. But there was something else that I remember seeing from the subreddit, which was about people's like main criticism of the game. Now, before I go into any of that, which you don't have to listen to, obviously, but what's the worst feedback you feel like you've gotten so far?
And just letting you know, like, I'll take a couple more questions, but I do have to run into break.
No, that is totally fine. I was going to close this out at like 1:15. So anyway, that's totally fine.
Perfect. So the criticisms for the game, I find that I'm pretty lucky because there is a lot of love for the game, and because it's a very niche game, you're not gonna download and buy this game. You're not gonna get a random person being like, "What's this?" It's like when they see command line interface and they see how janky the interface is and how it looks. The people who are generally gonna buy this game probably are gonna dig it. So that's what's really cool is that, so I didn't get all like, it's very hard to read your forums sometimes, but for me, I find negative feedback if you can stomach it, and sometimes it's not easy to stomach, but that's informing you. That's like, and you aggregate it. If one person doesn't like something about the game, that's fine. It's, you know, it doesn't have to be all things to all people. But generally what I did was I took my forums. That's why early access was so great. I took any negative feedback or constructive criticism, and then I aggregated that, and I was like, wow, there's a problem here, right? Like, people are very frustrated by this one thing, and so I need to fix that. And then sometimes they're frustrated by something that is intentional. And at that point, you just have to decide whether or not, as the designer, you're going to keep to that or you're not going to keep to that, right? I remember when we first launched early access, the thing that frustrated people the most was I was breaking things mid-mission. Your thing.
What do you mean? What do you mean you're breaking mid-mission?
Your upgrades, your little modules there, like your generator or whatever, that could break in the middle of a mission.
Oh right, yes. Oh shit.
And people did not like that.
It's very realistic, but yes,
it's very realistic, and that's what it was part of that pillar. Right? It's realism, and it's feeling real, and it's also about adapting to survive.
Yes.
So what I realized is that for people, it started triggering things like, did it break because I was using it too much, so should I not use it? And all of these problems started happening. And even though I love the idea of, like, you know, you're out there and something's breaking, there's enough stuff on the ship that breaks. So you'll notice now
No, don't pay attention to me. Keep talking.
nothing breaks now until you'll see when you exit and you go back to your ship.
Yeah.
You'll notice that's when things break. So I only changed status at that point, but that was really interesting feedback, and they were right, and I just hadn't have a lot of people playing it. So immediately with early access, that came back like right away, and then I changed it.
How long was the game in early access for? Because obviously I joined the
about 6 months.
Oh my goodness! Oh, well, I will. Oh man, this thing keeps moving from. I don't want to say it. It keeps moving. God damn it! Stay it. Sorry. I wanted to go into whatever room is to the left of R6, but it's not going to happen.
Well, now whatever was in there might be gone.
No, it's just loves hanging out. It's really whatever. That must just a wonderful whole bunch of.
Oh, you're trying to go to R6.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I know I'm gonna have to confront this. It is gonna be a hell of a way to.
Well, you could close D. You could close. Well, if you don't care about scrap, you could close D9 and then open up A3 and send it into space.
Wait. D27.
Now you're good.
I think we're good. All right, let's. But yeah, the genuine lot. I will ask chat if they have any further questions. The last question I was going to ask is there anything that you've been playing recently that you really enjoy as a game dev?
That is a great question. There are always games that I'm playing recently that I enjoy. Actually, what's really funny to me is that recently I'm looking at games. I'm looking at the way that different genres integrate story into the game.
Yeah.
And so I've been playing a variety of things to do it in different ways. I've gone back to Banner Saga.
Yeah.
Which is a fun game that I had started playing and then I fell off of, and so I went back to, and so I'm really enjoying that right now. There was a new one that I hadn't played yet called Nowhere Prophet that is kind of like a deck builder that has some atmosphere to it, and it tells story in a kind of a different way. Kind of like Slay the Spire with story sprinkled in and stuff like that.
I fucking love that. I love Slay the Spire. I thought about playing that on this channel a whole bunch, and then I heard that it's coming to Android, I think, in about a month. So I was gonna say,
cool.
Oh, cool! There's radiation in there. All right, we're gonna leave this. Okay, all right. That's if chat has any other questions, I think we're very, very happy to let Tim enjoy the rest of his evening. Thank you so much for doing it. This has been incredibly informative. This will be on the Totes Video highlight channel, and obviously we are going to play. Oh, sorry, it's a surprise, not to you, Tim, but to anybody who's watching. I've figured out how to turn Minecraft into a VR game, so we'll be playing Minecraft in VR this evening.
Nice.
How do you feel about Minecraft? Because I was going to say, as a roguelike and as a procedural.
I love Minecraft.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
So I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I tried to get into Minecraft way back in the day, and I bounced off it a little bit, and then with my daughter, I started playing it, and I just started loving both modes. I love survival and I love creative mode, and it was just amazing to be able to do that with her. And then I started doing it with my brother, who we used to play Legos when we were kids. Yeah. And we would just go nuts on it. So I think it's an amazing game, and the amount of things you can do in it, and the fact that it's something that I can play with someone that is my daughter's age. I think that's amazing.
No, I had a hiatus from it from I think 8 years. My ex-fiance and I we played it a whole bunch, and I never picked it up again. And then when I started streaming, a whole bunch of my friends started playing Minecraft, and I was like, I might as well sort of play it. And it is the modding community just for shaders alone is astounding. Because I tested it out this morning in VR, and you can have the mods and the shader packs in VR, and it's so beautiful. For a game that is meant to be just blocks, it is astounding.
My daughter was showing me that the different renderers that are going on that, and it's just really, it's kind of crazy to see it that way.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's amazing how long it lasted, and having known some of the developers, it's so awesome that it turned into what it turned into, and the longevity of it, and also not to be too much, not to be too ridiculous, but just the fact that my daughter and her friends can play a game where they're not murdering each other, and
that is a highlight. I mean, that's what I mean. That's
nice.
the fact that your daughter was showing you the renders and shaders. I think when I was 9, I barely understood how Crash Bandicoot jumped. That's smart kid.
Believe me, I'm pretty sure I was still eating paste when I was 9. I'm not proud of it.
But no, we would love to have you back at some point in the future.
I'd love it. This was super fun, and this is it's been a while. It's actually because I would do a lot of this stuff, before, and then I kind of went on hiatus, and then we've been starting up this thing in Bed Robot Games and stuff like that. So I haven't done this as much, and I love talking to interesting people, and I love talking about all the amazing things we learn when we're making it, and it's just thinking about the community and stuff like that. Like it's so rewarding. I mean, indie development is definitely stressful.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! No! Oh thank God! Oh, sorry.
So rewarding.
Sorry, I thought I just dropped you completely from the chat. I was removing the presentation thing. Sorry. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I'm sorry it was a bit of a mess to initially set up, and I'm sorry you've had to hear me scream through those very nice headphones.
Oh no! None of that is a problem at all. I agree. You're an amazing host.
I did a little bit of research, and I appreciate that we talked before. You're very extroverted, and you're very, very happy to talk about the game. I'm going to end it here. Tim, I'm going to let you go if you want to leave the call, just so you have autonomy in that regard. I just hope you have a wonderful week. And thank you so much for talking about Duskers with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was great. This was truly like an awesome experience.
That's all right. Obviously, people should check out Duskers. It is currently on Steam, as well as I think you can buy it directly from the website as well. I imagine you get more money that way.
Back in the day, it's also like on the Humble store and on.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think it's also cheaper because I think that's how I purchased it as well. For PC. Oh, it's also available on Origin as well. I did not know that. But if you go to duskers.misfits-attic.com, putting it in the chat now, you can just buy now for $20, and then there's a Steam key there as well for that. So if anyone wants to check that out and they haven't checked it out and they've enjoyed the terrifying gameplay so far, you can all do that. But yeah, again, Tim, thank you so much. I'm going to go and start making dinner for my partner before she comes home, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
You too.
All right.
This is great.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, that was Tim Keenan. Thank you all so much for just being a part of this in general. He was so nice to do that. He I was such a mess trying to figure out a time for him and sort of get everything done, and I think that was such a wonderful interview.